Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live at the Waterhole. We're starting off with some elephants, always a favorite of mine, and we're here at Rosie's Pan, also one of my favorite pans to watch. It's me, Trishala, and I will be with you for the next 2 hours while we move through the various cameras across the different waterholes here in Southern Africa and also in East Africa. And we'll go to where the animals are. Remember that we're live and interactive, so you can send through questions and comments. I'd love to hear from all of you. You can head over to our website and register to send questions and comments. You can also head over to Twitter and use that hashtag Wild Earth if you'd like to just keep up with the conversation. And if you're watching on YouTube and you're in the chat, please use @FC, and we'll make sure that we get as many of those questions as possible through to me. But remember that Live at the Waterhole is also just about chilling and relaxing and enjoying the sights and the sounds of nature. So if you want to do that, I invite you to do that too. But I am here if you have any questions at all, and also to draw your attention to interesting things as we move across the different cams. Now, where I am in the world at the moment, I'm in Cape Town. I say that quite rarely. And that's because it is crazy windy and cold. And being able to escape into the African wilderness for a little bit warms me up. And I've definitely been needing it after this week of storm, rain, wind that I'm experiencing here. So while it might look quite chaotic as I stare out of my window, it's very peaceful here at Rosie's Pan. Oh, this is probably one of my favorite sounds. Elephants drink at a waterhole. So I'm going to let you take a minute to just listen to this. And of course, they stop when I want to show you how wonderful that sound is. But everyone seems really relaxed. It's only a matter of time until they continue to drink. We are in the dry season at the moment, so pans like these are very, very valuable to wildlife in the area. Wow, I'm really liking this view. You hardly ever get to see the top of an elephant. And as it moved across there, you could actually see the shoulder blades. We didn't ever get to see them. We've got some hellos coming through. Catherine says hello. Hello, Catherine. Thank you for joining us. And Darcy Miller as well. Oh, it's so nice to see these elephants having a very peaceful afternoon. I'd love to know where you are all joining us from. Where in the world over the last a couple weeks when we've really been experiencing the cold weather and the dryness that tends to come with winter in most of the country, not where I am. It's nice to hear about people that are coming and joining us from all over the world and usually in the northern hemisphere, and they tell us how nice and warm it is. It makes me feel better. It warms my soul. And while I'm sure that many of you live vicariously through me when we're out in the bush, when it's cold here and you have warm weather, I am definitely living vicariously through all of you. Oh, Kim Festino, you say warm evening here in the Philippines. Oh, that sounds amazing. I imagine it to be a little humid too. Sounds good. We have a one tusk elephant here. Looks like it might have lost that tusk. Sometimes it can be difficult to tell whether the tusk has broken off very close to the face or where it attaches to the face. We call that the proximal end of the tusk. But if it happens to lift up its head, we might be able to tell. I love it when we have a live at the waterhole full of elephants, and it seems like that's the way it's going. So, from Rosie's Pan here in Olifants West, let's head over to Tembe in northern KwaZulu Natal. Oh, there we go. These elephants seem a little more energetic, seem to have a bit of a spring in their step. I've seen lots of bachelor herds here at Tembe, and I suspect that that's what we're looking at right now, too. A little chaos at the back there. I see a stiffened tail. It's down now, though, and some of them having a nice drink. I love the view that this camera gives us at Tembe. Perfect timing as we pulled out from there. Oh, then we have some impala. Now, this area in the front here, you can see all these little holes. Those are from elephants that have been digging in an area. They've been there for a long time. And I think that this is the shallowest I've seen them, and probably the most grass cover I've seen around the hole too, which is really nice. It reminds me that things are constantly getting renewed and regenerated across landscapes if they are allowed to. And more grass is always great for elephants. Elephants will prefer to eat juicy grasses over foliage, even in the wet season, or particularly in the wet season. In the dry season, the grasses are not so juicy. They tend to move to a more mixed diet in the dry season, but far fewer grasses than we would expect in the wet season. Oh, I wonder if that elephant in the back there has yes, absolutely. Looked like he found himself a little hole that was filled with water and is nice and muddy, giving himself a good old mud bath. Truly wonderful sounds here at Tembe. Beautiful birds and so lovely and green. But how about we head over to Tau in Madikwe Game Reserve? A breeding herd of elephants have come down to the waterhole. I always find that Tau looks much more desolate than the other cameras, but it's a wonderful thing that we do have cameras across different areas in Africa because it also represents different habitats, different soil types, different vegetation types. And here at Tau, you can see that there's really very mineral rich soils in this area. You see that white sheen to the sand, and then you can see where the tree line starts at the back there. Now, though these soils are mineral rich, they've got things like phosphorus and calcium, all really important minerals for the health of animals, and you might see them chewing on the soil in this area, geophagia. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's fantastic for tree growth. And as you can see, there's not a ton of trees growing around the waterhole, and those that are sickle bush at the back there. Now, sickle bush, it's one of those trees that are really good at taking over degraded areas or eroded areas, places where other plants may not do well. And that's all part of the niche and ecology dance that goes on between plants and the soil and the moisture and the temperature and the animals. And that wonderful ecology dance is what gives us variety, gives us biodiversity. I quite like seeing the different types of landscapes. We were over at Tembe in KwaZulu Natal earlier, and it was so lush. That area gets quite a bit of rainfall. It's nice and warm. It's very tropical. But here over at Tau and Madikwe Game Reserve, things are a little drier. And it shows. But the vegetation and the animals in these areas are well suited to this kind of habitat. And really, the environment drives everything else. Things that we think are maybe a little boring or you don't really consider it when you're thinking about wildlife. So things like temperature, moisture content, the geology, these non-living factors, they play a really important role because they drive pretty much every bit of life in that area. Those are the parameters. Those abiotic factors, the non-living things, they set up the rules. Oh, look at this little one. I'm quite surprised, or at least over on this side of Tau, or of the waterhole, the banks haven't developed very much. So in the dry season, you get these steep banks as the water levels drop. And that can become a little troublesome for little elephants that need to have a drink. But they are starting to form. Now, over on the right of the waterhole, or further over to the right, those banks can get really steep. So I had an interesting observation and a thought from Gwen. Gwen's directing me today, which is very nice. I haven't had Gwen in my ear for a while. So Gwen was wondering, do the elephants also lick the stones and the soil to try and get those minerals, the different salts and those bits of calcium and phosphorus and things like that? Now, I can't say that I've seen elephants do that specifically. I've seen a multitude of other antelope or antelope do that, but I haven't really seen elephants do this. Now, remember that when animals do engage in that kind of behavior, remember they can't digest the soil or the rocks, but they can extract the minerals from it. So it's not adding any bulk to their diet, but it is supplementing their nutritional needs or their mineral needs. So whether or not an individual, not even a specific species, whether or not an individual goes over, chews on a little bit of dirt to get those extra minerals, depends very much on what their diet has been over the last week, 2 weeks, even just a few days. And so elephants being mixed feeders, I wonder if that allows them to absorb more minerals from just their diets. They're not supplementing as much. And remember, just because I haven't seen them engage in geophagia doesn't mean that they don't do it. But I had another thought. These salts and minerals can leach into the water. So maybe they're getting a significant number of it or of them from just drinking as well. And now that's making me think about other heavily water reliant animals and whether I've seen them engage in geophagia. I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen buffalo do it. Again, doesn't mean that they don't. And that's another heavily water reliant animal. But it's something to think about. And as you can see with this little one that's just splashing itself with some of that sand, it's very easy for them to get it into their mouths and possibly very easy for them to do it and not really be noticed by us. Oh, it looks like it's having the time of its life. Now, this is wonderfully playful and peaceful, but a little birdie by the name of Gwyn told me that there's a black stork on the hunt at Gnu Pan in Mabula. So let's head over and have a look. Oh, there we go. Oh, it's definitely got one. That frog looks well and truly dead, I must say, and down it goes. Sometimes it takes them a while to orientate the frog in a way that doesn't allow them to swallow it properly. But this was very swift. And now you can see those wonderful colors, that iridescence. The black stalks are called black stalks because the majority of their bodies are black. You do get that kind of white vest. And they're very distinct. But that black is not just black. There's this iridescence as well that makes them really beautiful. Of course, because it is a form of structural coloration. You don't see it all the time, just at certain angles. And when you do, it feels so special. Like they've suddenly pulled out all the stops and then have put it away again. Well, let's see if this individual can manage to get another. Now, yesterday at this waterhole, there were 2 black stalks, and there was also a hammerkop that was moving around. It looked like it was irritating the black stalks a little bit. We've got the blacksmith lapwing at the back there. Oh, I guess sometimes once you've fed, that's enough. No need to stuff yourself. Making extra room, that's always a good idea. I think this blackstock has the right idea. It got itself a nice meal, quite a plump frog. I'm not able to ID that frog, especially not from that angle, and we just kind of got the tail end of it for the whole hunt. But that's a sizable meal for about a 3 kg bird. Then went for a little walk, relieved itself, and came back. Now, if that is not an excellent post-meal plan, I don't know what is. A walk after a meal is always a good idea. I'm wondering if the other one that was here yesterday will be around as well. Doesn't look like it. Well, I suppose a peaceful meal is always a good thing. Hi, Mercedes. Mercedes, you've joined us again. You say greetings to everyone. And you're saying it's Oh, very happy Wednesday because you in Southern California are expecting about 87 degrees Fahrenheit, 31 degrees Celsius. Thank you very much, Mercedes. I can feel myself warming up, watching the black stork, watching the elephants, listening to all your wonderful stories about Southern California and the Philippines where it's lovely and warm, making me feel better already. It was a beautiful stretch by that black stork. It's a stretch that you see very often with birds when they pull out their wings, and when they pull out, they usually do one side at a time. And when they pull out that wing, the leg on that side goes with it. Now, it could just be a matter of getting a deep stretch. If you have tried to stretch your hamstrings or your quads, or even if you're trying to stretch your shoulders, you might find that it's not just about how you stretch your shoulder, but what you can do with other parts of your body to get you a deeper stretch. I wonder if the stork is doing a similar thing. And remember, it's not about thinking; it's about feeling. Oh, that even felt like a little bit of a stretch there. So the stork's not thinking, I think I'll get a deeper stretch if I do this, but it's more about the feeling. If they pull this side and they pull that side together, they get a nice deep stretch. Something was flying overhead. It looked like a small bird, and it really got this black stork's attention. Now, black storks will take small birds like chicks, not necessarily adults, but a small bird like a three-banded plover, for example. If it were in the wrong place at the wrong time, I'm sure that a black stork would have a go. So whatever it is that was getting its attention, ooh, perhaps even an insect. Not sure. It still looks like it's on its afternoon stroll, though, post-meal stroll. And we'll return back here to the GNU waterhole at Mabula if more action ensues. It almost looks like it has hiccups, doesn't it? It doesn't have hiccups, everyone. It would not be that obvious, and it would not take the bird's whole body, but it does look like it. Anyway, there are some kudu at Rosie's Pan. We're really getting a lot of animals this time at Live at the Waterhole, so let's head over to Rosie's for now. Oh, we've got kudu and we've got some impala on the left, and further down you see that road that you can kind of see curving on the top right-hand side of your screen. I always like to look there because you never know what's moving around. And so when we're out on game drive, there's this feeling of you never know what could be around the next corner or on your left or on your right, because you're looking on your left, something could be happening on your right, and there's always this toss up between what is happening, where like things could happen anywhere at any time. And that's what I love about being on safari. But I found a similar type of feeling with the waterhole cameras too, just a little different. Because sometimes, I mean, initially you look at the waterhole because that's where the cameras are placed, and for good reason. Particularly here in the dry season at the moment, animals are going to flock to this resource. So it's for good reason that our cameras are positioned, and Africam's cameras are positioned near waterholes. But once you start to get used to the waterhole, you start looking on the periphery, and then you start looking, noticing little roads, noticing little game paths, and that's what I love to look at because you never know what's going to be there. And here at Rosie's Pan, there is the leopardess, the Rosie's Pan female, and she visits this waterhole quite a bit, and she has done so during the day as well. So whenever I look in these little spaces between the trees, it just makes me feel like, ooh, could the Rosie's Pan female be there? I don't know. There have been wild dogs here at this pan. Anything can happen. My favorite thing about Rosie's Pan, though, I'm not sure that he's around anymore, but it was Monty Python. Monty Python was a firm favorite. He stuck around for probably about 3 or 4 months, and he used to catch. So he was a python, if you're not sure, and he used to catch birds. He used to climb to the, or slither, I should say. I guess he can also climb to the top of the tree and just lie on a dead branch and wait for birds to come past. And it was just the most fascinating thing to watch. But he hasn't been back in a while. And if you know Rosie's Pan and you know that he's been around, I'm sure that you also miss Monty Python. Things are wonderful and peaceful in this area at the moment, and I have a feeling that we should take it all in because once we head up to East Africa in a little bit, I think things are going to get really, really busy and we'll be chatting a lot. And remember that we are live interactive, so please do send through those questions and those comments. But for now, take a breather, maybe enjoy a sip of your cup of tea if you've got it, and let's really sink in to live at the waterhole. Very, very peaceful here at Rosie's Pan. Catherine had a really interesting question. Catherine, you'd like to know what mammal species adapts best to different habitats? Oh, that's such a difficult question, and I'm not sure I can answer it fully. But a really obvious one that comes to mind are leopards. Leopards are really, really good at adapting to suit different environments. The only area you won't be able to potentially see a leopard is in true desert. But other than that, they're getting the majority of their moisture requirement from their food. So, all the different types of liquids and things like that that are in our bodies, they are, well, not our bodies, but the bodies of their prey, like other mammals, they're supplementing their moisture requirements, and that comes in the form of liquids and plasma and all those sorts of things. And in areas where there's a lot of cover, they will have smaller territories, and areas where it's much drier and there's fewer resources, they'll have expansive territories, but they can pretty much exist anywhere except for true desert. Now, antelope tend to be pretty specialized, but even still, certain antelope, like impalas, they do really well, and it shows. They're very numerous. They do prefer open areas, but you might even see them in bushy, more thicketed areas, whereas things like Nyala, they prefer those really bushy areas and a lot of riverine areas as well. They like dense vegetation. Same goes for kudu, same goes for bushbuck. So if you take them to an area where it's very open, they're going to be vulnerable because the majority of their defenses are suited to their preferred habitat. But also, this term preferred habitat is an important one because it simply means that it's preferred. Doesn't mean that they won't be able to persist in other types of habitats. Like you would see when we're on game drive in Juma, you see kudus sometimes out in the open. You see nyalas out in the open, particularly in those open clearings near our camp. But there's so many other things that influence that. For one, the nyalas love to come into the camp. Camp is a protected area for animals, that is. They know that it's around a human um, establishment. They know that there's lots of trees around, there's water runoff, which means trees are juicier. So lots of things come into play. But off the top of my head, I would say that a leopard is pretty adaptable. Very, very lovely, peaceful moments here. I love the birds. I also love the calmness of the landscape. You can see that it's starting to really change well and truly in the thick of the dry season at the moment. But I think from this very peaceful scene, how about we head over to El Doño? It's always pumping up in East Africa at this time. Let's have a look at who's at the waterhole. Nice. I love when we see giraffes here at Old Danyo, and you can see there's very many oxpeckers on this giraffe, and sometimes to get rid of them, they do a little bit of a stomp on the ground, and it's just the most magnificent thing. And I'm really hoping that this giraffe does it. Look at that! There must be about 20, if not more, oxpeckers on its back. Now, this giraffe looked a little tentative about actually dipping down and having a drink. And I think that I can, there we go. I think I can tell why. There must be an elephant. I can also hear the faint voices of people. So, where this camera is positioned, there's a hide at this waterhole. And sometimes people can be heard. And that can be a little off putting depending on whether the animal has felt nervous that day and is already a little bit stressed or anything like that. But generally, I find that the giraffes at Old Donyo are much, much more confident at a waterhole compared to the giraffes we see at waterholes in other parts or in other areas where we have cameras. Now, if you are like me and perhaps you've watched these cameras for some time and you're seeing this great big elephant bull, and he really is a magnificent bull, nice and thick, and you see that there's a giraffe in the distance, I'm sure your mind went to that time that we saw the elephant bull have a go at a giraffe in a situation very much like this. Had a go at the giraffe and actually pierced it with its tusks. And unfortunately, the giraffe later died, according to the rangers in this area. And it appeared to be completely unprovoked. And the situation reminds me of that too. But the elephants here at Old Donyo, they can really take over the waterhole and they can be quite possessive over the waterhole. And maybe that adds to why giraffes are pretty confident in this area because if they want to have a drink, they've got to push through and kind of, you know, man up and get through the wall of elephants if they want to have a drink. But even so, we can see that this bull is paying close attention to the giraffe, even though it's not obvious. Elephants are coming here for one reason: they want to drink or they want to cool down. And this elephant is doing neither of those things. Definitely some attention focused on that giraffe. Just made me think of that incident. Felka and Visaji, you say good afternoon and you wish you were at one of the waterholes and you'd sit there the whole day. I think Aldonio is one of those waterholes I could sit at the entire day. Especially now, in the peak of the temperature, middle of the day, I think that that's the best time to be sitting at a waterhole. And at Aldonio, it just seems to pump at this time of day. But I would even stay into the night when it comes to Aldonio. Hopefully, get to see a striped hyena. That would be a dream for me. Lenny, you have a really interesting question. You'd like to know, why don't oxpeckers land on elephants? Don't they have ticks too? They definitely do have ticks. And you're right, oxpeckers don't often land on elephants, or rather, I should say, elephants don't allow oxpeckers to land on them as much as other animals do. And they certainly do have ticks, but I think, and there's no answer to this question for why exactly, because it seems that oxpeckers and elephants, they really don't seem to get along. An elephant, now I did see an elephant calf with an oxpecker on it before, but it kind of went a little crazy and couldn't figure out how to get this thing off itself. So I think that it might come down to, for one, we know that oxpeckers that pull off ticks, it's not just the ticks that they're also after open wounds and blood, and that could be a generally uncomfortable process. So maybe elephants are more sensitive to that feeling on their skin compared to other animals, or other mammals, I should say. We also know that though elephants have hairs sparsely located around their bodies, they don't have a layer of fur like we see in other mammals that oxpeckers land on. So I think that also adds to the sensitivity of the skin. The oxpeckers, their little claws, are going to have to go right onto the elephant's skin. So I think that for elephants, that whole process is irritating and uncomfortable, and that some of that irritation is masked by the fur of many animals. So they're not actually feeling as uncomfortable by the presence of oxpeckers as elephants do. Now, that is just my educated guess on why. And I think that learning not to land on elephants from the oxpecker's perspective, I totally think that's learned behavior and it comes from trial and error. And considering that I've seen an oxpecker land on an elephant calf before, I'm pretty sure that flinging their trunk at and getting irritated by oxpeckers is also something that has to be learned. Maybe the first time it lands on an elephant, like with this calf that I saw, it's not sure what that is. Is it a threat? All I know is it's scratchy and I don't like it. And it was really surprised. This elephant calf was very, very, very surprised and kind of lost it a little bit, which was cute. But it gave me a good perspective on one, elephant skin sensitivity, and two, just how uncomfortable having an oxpecker land on you could feel. That is a beautiful close up of the trunk there. Now, a couple days ago, or it might even have been last week, there was an elephant here at Old Donyo. He had an elephant bull. He had a very obvious tear in his ear, his left ear. And there was something else. Oh, one of his tusks were turned downwards, kind of like the elephant Fang, if you know Fang, the elephant cow from Juma. So he had a downturned tusk and one torn ear. And he was displaying some really interesting behavior when it came to a giraffe. He seemed to be really threatened by the presence of a giraffe, not annoyed like we see many elephants do around a waterhole, not trying to push them away or just wanting to show dominance over the giraffe. He appeared to be legitimately threatened, or at least to feel legitimately threatened by this giraffe. And when the giraffe would come close to the waterhole, he would move back. And he would be watching the giraffe very, very carefully. And I thought it was such an interesting thing because it's very different to what we're seeing here between this individual and the giraffe that was here. This is just not wanting to share. And like you say, Sanjeev Roy, Ellies don't want to share water holes with any animals or a bug. It's true. And sometimes they can be very accommodating to other animals in the sense that they can even move aside. Other times they won't be irritated at all. It means nothing to them whether another animal is there. And at other times, it could mean the whole world. And all focus and energy is targeted towards the animal that wants to come and drink, even if they are completely not a threat. Now, I have a feeling that there may be other elephants coming to join. Just something about the way he's standing still, dropping the trunk to the ground. He is here to drink. He's drinking every now and then, but he is distracted. And I think more elephants will come to join him. Oh, I love it when they just cutely tap the surface of the water. Now, when we started off live at the waterhole, we said that it seems like it's going to be an elephant-filled show, and the elephants did not disappoint, and they are continuing to come through, this time at Nkoro. So let's go say hi to those elephants. Oh, it's a lovely breeding herd with this little one. Oh, you are so wet, little one. Do you have a great old swim? Oh, look at that tail swinging side to side almost violently. Come on, head back into the water. Head back into the water. My goodness, this is going to be great. This feels like me at a pool as a child, where everyone says, "Come, it's time to go," and you just don't want to go. Oh, that's the worst, isn't it? When you just want to play some more, but now all the adults are gone, so you start to get a little panicky. Definitely a hint of panic in that elephant's movements. Oh, it looks like it's giving itself a nice scratch now. I have a feeling that this elephant calf has a bit of the zoomies. Lots of energy, ready to play, a little upset at how inconsiderate everyone is to its feelings. Maybe it'll come tumbling back through towards the waterhole. I doubt it, though. There was so much panic when it realized that all the adults had gone. It's really nice to see a calf. Most of the elephants we've been looking at for the last hour have been elephant bulls. It's nice to see a breeding herd with that tiny, excited little Ellie. You might have heard that big old rumble. I think that was a big old rumble to say, "Come on now, no more playtime. We got to get moving. There's food to eat." And as they move off, we're going to head over to Olifant's River. There's some cuties there having a bit of a drink too, but not of the Ellie kind. Oh, look at these cute little water bug. So many little calves. They're so nice and fluffy. They're having a drink really in the area. I thought they weren't going to be. I thought they would be over where the water line is over on the right. I thought that's where they'd have a drink, but hey, they're after the shallower, safer spots. Maybe they'll follow this other one that's decided to trek across. Oh, but look at their cute little bottoms. I really, really enjoy this camp. There's something about flowing water, and at Olifants River, that river is so strong. And it's always amusing to watch elephants or giraffes trying to cross the river. Now, waterbuck, as the name implies, are very comfortable around water, and it's one of their defenses to run into the water if they feel threatened. So, being in and around water is no problem for them, but that does not mean that they're immune to the threats that lurk below. And here at Olifants River, there are crocodiles. On Monday, was it on Monday or yesterday? We saw a really lovely one. It was on Monday. Like a crocodile that was in possibly the best condition I've ever seen a crocodile. But we know what good lighting can do, and I think it might have been the good lighting. Very nice, peaceful scenes along the banks here at the Olifants River. Now, waterbuck, like we're looking at right now, you'll get breeding herds or little groups like this with females and their offspring. Bulls tend to be territorial, but not always. Territorial bulls are usually on their own, as you would imagine, because they have a territory that they want to defend. But then you get non dominant bulls that are not particularly territorial yet or not at the moment, and they form small bachelor groups. A breeding herd like this, with several cows and their offspring, they move through the territories of bulls as they go. Now, given that we know that waterbacks consider water a very valuable resource, not only for the the water it can provide for drinking, but also as a defense, and also the juicy vegetation that grows at the edges of water. So, an, a bull that can have a territory that includes some water is going to do very well. Because as this breeding herd moves through, you can see they had a drink, one still drinking on that little puddle on the left there. They're chomping on this nice vegetation, and they're just going to keep on moving to other good patches of resource. Now, if you're a waterbuck bull and your territory happens to overlap with some of those good resources, then you are in the money. You don't necessarily have to go and herd any of those groups into your territory. They're just going to naturally come into them because they want your resources. And that's what they're banking on. And then once those breeding herds, like this one, are in the territory of a dominant bull, then he'll try to keep them there. But the best way to keep them there is to have resources that they want. Now, this particular herd, there's still a few very small waterbucks. Now, those females are likely not to come into estrus until those little ones are fully weaned, but there's some other individuals that could potentially be in estrus. Waterbucks don't have a breeding season, so if there is a dominant bull around and has taken this area and occupied it as his territory, this would be a good opportunity for him to mate. So suddenly you would have seen that they all started to bunch up together. They were fairly relaxed before that, very comfortable at the water's edge, having a few sips, having a few nibbles, and then suddenly something got their attention and they've grouped quite tightly. I think we're going to wait here to just see what it might be. The one coming in is absolutely unperturbed by whatever potential threat the others saw. But let's stick around and just figure out if we can tell what it is that got them to bunch together like this. Did you see that? They ran straight into the water. Whatever it is that they thought was a threat, they're 100% feeling. Ooh. Let's see if we can zoom out a little bit. Gwen will help me out there. So those waterbuck, they made a significant leap across here, almost over to the island. I can see an elephant in the distance there, but that's not what got their attention. Maybe we can do a little bit of a scan of the edge. Now, one thing to notice is that we do see that there's an elephant in the distance there, and elephants are really good at giving you indicators to the presence of potential threats, predators. And that elephant doesn't seem to be uncomfortable at all, really, but these waterbuck are still very uncomfortable. They were not looking in the direction of the elephant, though, and now the elephant is looking off in that direction. Maybe it's another elephant that come. We'll just have to wait and see. Well, there we go. Another elephant has come through. Looks like a young male, a young bull. Young bulls can be a little temperamental, so perhaps that's what, or the behavior of the young bull and the the energy with which it came down with, you'd see that they have quite a big spring in their step as they make their way down to water. But young bulls can also be um, want to show off just how big and strong they are. So that could have also intimidated the waterbuck. Now we can see the edge of the river there, and I'm not seeing any predator. But I still feel like something's up. Now even the kudu were looking out in that direction, the impalas are looking out in that direction. This is when it really makes me feel like I want to be there. Oh, a very nice little bushbuck there. Well, not very little, actually. Nice male bushbuck. Oh, I wonder if these are the same waterbuck that crossed back again. So over on that side, where they're looking, is actually where the lodge is. So it could be that there are people moving around, doing maintenance or something like that. That could also spook the waterbuck. Oh, I think they're going to make a dash for it across the water again. Oh my goodness, everyone's getting spooked. But like I said, when this whole interaction was happening, if there are elephants around, it's always a good idea to watch them. Because while many antelope can be especially cautious and especially reactive, elephants will usually only react if there is an actual threat and if they actually see or smell something. Now, even if there are people at the lodge that the elephants can pick up the smell on, they still won't react to it. It's not a surprising thing. Elephants can be really well attuned to what's happening around them and have a great deal of situational awareness. I'm not saying that antelope don't have that, they do, but if we're going to compare their ability to survey potential threatening situations, I would say that elephants are better at it and are definitely better indicators. The poor bushbuck that was here, shame, just got seemed like it got bombarded by the movements of the other antelope and didn't know what to do, but just decided to follow everyone else, which is a great survival strategy because you'd much rather not try and figure it out for yourself. If others are running, just run. Because those few seconds where you try to figure out what's happening could be your last few seconds. Anyway, that was really interesting to watch, although I think we can conclude that it was probably the lodge that was causing the antelopes to be a little bit uneasy. The elephants are totally fine. And I think it's time to head back up to East Africa. Let's head over to Oldonyo in Kenya. Oh, couldn't be happier. Nice big bulls. I love the position of this camera. It gives us a really fantastic perspective. Now, usually cameras are mounted pretty high to look down. And obviously, that gives us a greater distance that we can see. But here with the Soldano camera placed so close to the ground, it gives us a really nice perspective, especially of those really large animals like elephants and giraffes. And what I love is that when we see baboons in this area, they can come quite close to the camera too. I remember a time when there was a lion, Olkirikoi, that was his name. He got chased by an elephant and ran straight into the camera. Very, very closely, almost like his eye was looking right into the camera lens. We get some brilliant perspectives here at Aldonio. This is the time for silence. We're going to hear some beautiful sounds here. I'm going to be quiet, but remember, if you'd like to, please send through your questions and your comments. We will get to them. But I think that we're in for some beautiful sounds. So let's sit tight and have a listen. You can really get sucked in watching these elephants. They seem to be so purposeful and thoughtful in their movements. Of course, that's just a human perspective, but I really like how they're all spread out evenly. And this is how it starts because everyone is in line for that pipe over on the other side. But considering that other elephants, well, not other elephants, but other animals haven't been around, like the zebras that usually kick up the muck in the water, I'd say that the majority of the particles that are sitting in the water have probably settled down, and that means that the top layer of that water is good enough for drinking, which is why we're seeing this elephant right in front of us, or this Ellie bum right in front of us, having a good old drink, even though it's not at the pipe. I think that the other reason they are very quiet, well, not quiet, very, what is the word I'm looking for? Not calculated, but um, I suppose very purposeful in their movements at the moment is because they're probably talking amongst themselves and they're also observing, taking in information that they can see and they can hear from the tourists that are most likely in this hide that I was telling you about that's very close to where the camera is. I can hear human voices a little bit, so it's most likely that people are in there. And that's not a deterrent for, oh, everyone, I think we just all got a face full of flatulence there. That was directed right at us, or perhaps right at the tourists at the hide. So the elephant on the left here, I know him. He's got the two notches on his tusks. Like he's got pretty sizable tusks, but they're not as long as One Ton, the elephant that's quite famous at this waterhole. And then the elephant that moved away just now, he had only one tusk. We know him too. Now this one with the floppy ear, I have seen him before, but I don't know him as well. Oh, they stood so still there that I almost thought it was stuck. Or maybe... I'm having a thing. When I recognize One Ton, the elephant, it's always face on because of the size of his tusks. The one is very long and the other one's a little shorter. And so from the side on, I can't recognize him as well. No, that's not One Ton. His tusks are more close together. Oh, I just kind of, so I'm listening to the sounds with earphones. And I felt this very deep, bassy sound coming through. I'm not sure if there's a vehicle close by or it's rumblings. So possibly my favorite elephant that I get to see here, and I'm sure like many of you, is One Ton the elephant, and I hope that he does come through because I really want to see how his tusk injury is doing. But he's got his left tusk is very long. His right tusk is a little shorter, and it's his right tusk that's got the injury. But he doesn't have notches at the end of his tusks like the individual on the left does. And a combination of all these things, ear patterns, tusk notches, tusk length, any issues with the tail or the trunk, you can use those together to try and figure out who it is you're looking at. Now, most of the elephants here at Aldonio don't really have given names. One Ton has been given a name because he's got those really impressive tusks. But the others haven't been given specific names. But us viewers, we have called them certain things based on features. So there's the one tusk, not One Ton. One tusk, who obviously just has one tusk. There's no tail. There's twisted tusk. There's the one that has the hole in the trunk. We haven't been able to come up with a short and sweet name for that individual. I guess, holy. So I just wanted to have a look around there to see if there was anything approaching. Doesn't look like it. I really, really, really wanted to see 1 ton. But our time will come. I'll be with you for the next 2 days as well. So maybe we'll be lucky enough to see 1 ton come over and then we can have a look at his injury. I was sent quite a few pictures of his injury, which was really wonderful to look at so I could have a good close look at what was going on. So I would really like to see how it's improved. But the last time I saw him, at least he wasn't bleeding anymore, but it still looked like he was experiencing some discomfort. Ah, here come the zebra in the distance. Now, once they come to the waterhole, they get really excitable. They move around, they want to get in, but they don't want to approach the elephants and don't want to get too close. And then eventually someone breaks in, gets to the water, and that opens up the floodgates. But what they also do is kick around and move a lot in the water, which means that they don't, once they're done with the waterhole, it doesn't appear to be as tasty to the elephants as it is before zebras make their way. Now let's see who's going to be brave. Well, that was fairly easy compared to the last couple days where the zebra really had to push through a wall of elephants to get even close to the water. And they were getting really antsy. There was lots of kicking and bucking and biting and calling. But this time round, it seems like a fairly easy process. The elephants don't seem to mind either. Maybe I spoke too soon. Not everyone can get in, and so there is a little bit of um, biting and pushing, kicking. The elephants are still very relaxed, but if the zebras get a bit too rowdy, it's going to irritate the elephants. And very soon, all of the movement from the zebra is going to push the elephants away because the quality of the water will just not be as good. There's still a bit of space. Oh, there we go. Into the water. Elephants are not going to like this. Now, I'm not saying that zebras in any way want to cause trouble for these elephants, but the movement in that water, it's almost like they're trying to stir it up, but they're not. It's just this the excitement and also the slight panic and possessiveness of wanting to get to the water that's causing them to just move around, defend themselves, kick others out of the way, bite, scratch, whatever else to get to the water. And you can see that the elephants are not terribly disturbed by it. They still have that pipe on that side, but now they've moved on from drinking and are instead spraying themselves with the water. Oh, this is just wonderful. All the movement of the zebras, the calling, you would have heard the whoop, 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 whoop in the background. That big elephant bull coming through and scattering the zebra. Aldonio is really putting a show on for us. With this much activity at the waterhole, so much movement, so much sound, not only coming from the animals but from the water, there really isn't much to say. And it really allows you to pull into the fact that this is live. It's happening right now at the Aldonio waterhole in Kenya. Right now, you may be sitting at home. I'm sitting at home. I'm enjoying a nice cup of tea. And the elephants and the zebra are enjoying a nice drink right here at the same time as all of us watching. And I think that's the most wonderful thing about being live is it's happening right now and anything could happen. And you just get to see all of it, not just a part of it. Oh, look at that leg, ready to kick anyone that approaches that zebra from behind. Decided to simmer down now, though. And we have about 2 minutes or so left before I hand you over to the great Steve. He'll be doing On Safari. I wonder what he'll have in store for you all this afternoon. Taya, you wanted to know, or you're wondering if elephants ever get things stuck up their trunks. That is such an interesting thought, and I have thought about it before. And I'm sure they must. Especially if they're younger elephants and they're furiously trying to suck up water. Maybe they suck up a stone or something like that. I'm sure that they do get things stuck in their trunks. But I think very much like us, if you get something touching even close to your nose, you can tell straight away and you'll repel it. So they can push water out of their trunks, as you've seen. And maybe that's a way to get rid of anything that gets stuck in them. But at the same time, as they get older, they might get used to the sensation and be able to actually stop it before anything gets stuck up in there. I love thinking about those kinds of things. Interesting little tidbits that we get to explore and be curious about. Anyway, everyone, that's our time come to an end. I'm now going to hand you over to Steve with On Safari, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
Hello everybody, hello and welcome. Sorry if there was any technical issues there. Everything was great a moment ago. Hopefully you can hear me now. Hello everybody, my name is Steve and cameras on camera with me here in the tent here at Private Game Reserve. And there's the 24-hour, or should I say the 72-hour highlight reel, as there was no show really shown the last 2 days. Most of the audience, although yesterday did have some splendid sightings and will feature today on the show. So as always everybody, please do send through your